Hey, good Wednesday morning, everybody. BAM weather meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long-range forecast update, guys. I hope y'all are doing well this morning. Really, in today's video, I want to focus on where we've been, especially summer to date, and what that could mean for where we are going forward, especially as we work into the month of August. So we'll take a look at some similar years to the summer of 2025 so far, and I think the first place to start is how active that it's been for the middle part of the country. This is the last 30 days, and this is the precipitation ranks all time based on each climate district across the middle part of the country here. And these ranks go all the way back to 1893, so the last 133 years. And so the numbers you see, if you see a 1, that indicates that it's the wettest on record out of the last 133 years. And for a good portion of the Central Plains and into parts of the Midwest, we are, top 5, top 10 wettest on record over the past 30 days. It has just been very consistently active in this region, and even parts of the lower Ohio Valley as well. Top 10 wettest on record, southern Indiana, parts of east central parts of Illinois. And so it's been active, guys. There's no doubt about that. The one area that we have been touching on and that we've been talking about that has been a little bit drier on the bottom half of these years in terms of the ranks, in terms of total precipitation. Parts of northern Indiana, southern Michigan, northwest Ohio, parts of Illinois as well have not been quite as active. Rainfall totals have been a little bit more hit or miss. If you need rain in that area, I do have some good news for you, so stay tuned later on into this video. You can see here, next 7 days, really heat continues to be the big story in the short term. Temperatures 5 to 8 degrees above normal in a pretty widespread fashion here across the Ohio Valley, Midwest, Great Lakes, into the Tennessee Valley. Hot period, no doubt about it, especially with those overnight lows. And then in terms of that rainfall, guys, that we just mentioned, you can see here, corridor of some heavier rainfall potential across the northern Ohio Valley into the Great Lakes, continued rain opportunities for Nebraska and into Iowa in here, and of course up into the upper Midwest as well. We'll dive into a little bit more detail on that in a second, but again, if you've been skipped out on rain in parts of the Ohio Valley, there should be some opportunities for you late this week and into the weekend. As we roll into the start of August, I think that the pattern will cool down. We've talked about this for a while, that there would be a stronger cold front in here the first week of August. We start to moderate things the last couple of days of July, and then this cooler air begins to press southward across parts of the Midwest, the Northeast, probably even into the Ohio Valley for several days into this week 2 time frame. So we'll feel a lot cooler when you compare the next 7 days being so much above normal and being so humid compared to a cooler and probably a less humid air mass heading into the start of the month. What will that mean in terms of precipitation? Well, rainfall opportunities will be shoved further down to the south and to the west. Should continue to be active across the plains, and we'll see more rain opportunities into the central and the southern plains, which aren't quite as active this week as we go into this week 2 period. In terms of the temperatures over the next several days, guys, taking a look at those high temperatures, upper 90s to 100s across the southern plains into the Arklatex region, and then mid 90s into the Ohio Valley. Again, the daytime highs, guys, they're not record-breaking here for the vast majority of the country. Maybe some record-breaking highs in the southeast as we work into the weekend, but for the most part here, it's hot. There's no doubt about that, but it's not super unusual. It's hotter than normal, but it's not anything we haven't seen before. Now, the humidity, on the other hand, is what has spawned all the, extreme heat warnings and watches and heat advisories, because the humidity is making the feels-like temperature so much higher. With the humidity, we're also seeing very warm overnight lows. We're not cooling down much overnight, and you see all the squares on the map. That is indicating record-breaking warm low temperatures, and we have a lot of those. And I continue to think that this is something that needs to be highlighted, because for a lot of reasons. Number one, obviously just not cooling things down into the overnight hours, but from a crop perspective as well, overnight lows can be impactful, and it's something that we want to continue to touch on. The core of the record-breaking warm lows will be across the southeastern part of the country as we head into early next week, but lows in the mid-70s through the Ohio Valley, low 70s into the Midwest will continue to be a theme as we work through the weekend and into early next week. Now, taking a look at the upper level pattern as we go over the next several days, guys, you can see this dome of heat here situated across the southeastern portion of the country. In the short term, again, we'll be allowing moisture to kind of flow around this ridge. Here's your moisture source coming from the Pacific, right through this area in here, around this ridge in kind of the ring of fire pattern, which means that your better rainfall potential will be setting up kind of through this area here along that gradient north and west of the heat dome. As we work into the next week, this continues to be a factor. We will continue to deal with the heat as we work into next week. I do think that as this starts to weaken, as we work into next week, we may need to watch for some kind of a stronger storm cluster threat kind of through this region in here. It's typically when you get these domes of heat to weaken, to fade a little bit. As that happens, you can get stronger to severe storm clusters to develop. So we'll need to watch the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley as we work into next week for that risk. But then take a look at what happens as we close out the month and start out August. You can see we zoom out. This cold front will sweep in. The ridge is really weakened at this point, and cooler than normal air should arrive as we start out the month. Now, before we get to that, real quick, just to dive into a little bit more detail of the rainfall setup for the weekend, this is what the setup is. We have a weak stationary boundary that will be draped across parts of the Great Lakes region. We have a decently strong low-level jet, and that is going to provide uplift, which combined with the ample moisture in the atmosphere and the humidity will lead to the rainfall threat. Again, the combination of these three things, leading to the risk as we head into Friday, Saturday, and into your Sunday, which again is very important because if we take a look at where the soil moisture is a little bit lower, where it's gotten a little bit drier, it's parts of the Ohio Valley right in this area. So should be some beneficial rains as we work through this time frame. In terms of the exact evolution of temperatures here, you can see the heat lingers around as we work into next week, really continuing, especially across the southeastern U.S. through the middle part of next week. As we work towards the 31st and the 1st of the month, this is when the cooler air starts to bleed down, and it will continue to press south and east as we work through the first several days of August, probably lingering for a solid 5, 6, 7 days. I think that based off initial indications, you're probably not looking at this heat returning until closer to the 10th of the month, sometime in that second week of August. So should be a nice cool down as we start out the new month. Now, in terms of where we've been, we talked about the ranks for the last 30 days. Here's kind of a picture for the United States as a whole. It's been, again, very active across the middle part of the country. What I wanted to do here is dive into this in a little bit more detail. What years have matched the best to the pattern that we have seen? And especially for the precipitation pattern, but for the temperatures as well. The years that seem to match up closest are 2016, 2010, and 2008. Now, 2010 has been a year we've talked about for quite some time. It's not a perfect match globally, but there are a lot of things about 2010 which are good. It was a much stronger La Nina. We're not expecting that, but there are similarities with the Atlantic Ocean. There are similarities with the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, which makes it good enough to use as an analog. In fact, if you take a look at the top 4 sea surface temperature analogs across the globe right now, you've got 2010, 2011, 2013, and 2001 as the top 4. And so it's good with a lot of things. And again, we have a lot of similarities with the precipitation and with the heat that we've been dealing with to that particular year. And so, again, matches up very well. We're probably actually going to be warmer this year than these 3 combined in the eastern part of the country with the heat ahead. But my question when I saw this was, okay, what does this mean for the forecast ahead? Well, you take a look at these years as we head into August, and it favors more heat across the eastern part of the country, especially the Great Lakes, Midwest, and the Ohio Valley. Maybe a tick further west than what we dealt with in July. Now, obviously, the start of the month is going to start out a little bit cooler, and so the idea here is heading into that second week of the month and beyond in August, the pattern will start to heat up. What does this mean in terms of precipitation? Well, it continues to be active across the southern tier of the United States and still kind of through the middle part of the country here. Not quite as active, though, in parts of the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley. Diving into this in a little bit more detail, what we did here is we took some of our top fall analogs and I combined them with these 3 years. 2010 is one that's good for both. And you can kind of see here the idea of above normal temperatures returning, especially for the central to the eastern part of the country. Again, as we talked about yesterday, I think the risk is the main corridor of heat could set up and return a little bit further west than what we dealt with in July. I think the big question mark in terms of temperatures for August is how long does this cooler air linger around in this region in here? It's going to start the month cooler here, and it will probably start the month warmer kind of through this area in here. And so there's got to be a transition at some point where this warmth comes back to the east. Again, I would be on the lookout for that sometime the second week of August, but if it's delayed at all, that is a cooler risk to the forecast. In terms of precipitation, as we had touched on before, it's a little bit of a drier risk. It's not as active, especially in this region, compared to the other months this summer. And if you actually take a look at our current August outlooks, I think the risk here is, we need to tick this a little bit further to the west based off those analogs that we showed, but the general idea is there, especially for precipitation, with the central part of the country remaining a little bit more active, but perhaps heading into mid to late August not being as active for the eastern ag belt regions. And so we've got support for this idea both from where we've been and from our top pattern drivers to where we're going ahead that we talked about yesterday. And so feel pretty decent about the idea in terms of how the pattern will evolve heading into the month of August, which again likely features more heat. And so we've got a break ahead, but I do think that the hotter weather can come back. It's not done for the season yet. It's going to be kind of that fake fall-like feel. Probably not even fall-like temperatures, but it might seem like that after the heat we're dealing with in the short term. So guys, that's all that I have for today. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day.